You are listening to the Digital Parent Podcast with your host, Ced Lewis.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Digital Parent Podcast. And this episode is all about financial aid, college planning. If you're one of those parents that's been spending years saving in a 529 college plan, or maybe you're on Google searching for different scholarships, we're going to show you on this episode why that may be a terrible idea. Because on this episode, we have my good friend, Danny Umali, who's the founder of Game Theory College Planners right here in Atlanta, Georgia. There's a couple things that Danny really stresses on this podcast. One, about how you can use institutional aid, which is money that's endowed to universities, to give your child a free ride. And two, how you can use social media to even get more money from colleges to give your child a free ride. So please sit back, listen to these tips and these strategies, write them down because they're powerful. You definitely be able to use them for your child who may be on the way to college or maybe your nieces or nephews. But before we get into this episode, a quick word for today's sponsor, Social Assurity. Hey parents, I want to introduce you to a new company called Social Assurity. Social Assurity helps students rise above the crowd of qualified college applicants by teaching students to showcase their potential to colleges, employers, auto insurance companies, and those who share their interests. By using social media properly, Social Assurity helps students create and disseminate an accurate and compelling picture of their lives via social media for a clear advantage in their recruitment process with colleges and universities. So make sure you go to socialassurity.com. That's socialassurity.com and download one of their e-courses to help your child rise above other applicants. Hey, Danny, welcome to the Digital Parent Podcast. We're so glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Ed Grid. I'm glad to be here.
Danny, you are probably the first, you are the only college planner we've had on the show so far because, college planning is a new field. Kind of tell some of our fans, some of our audience, what are the benefits to having a college planner opposed to, just going to your regular, CPA person or your family financial advisor?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of, the term college planner is such a generic term. There's a lot of different college planners that do different things, but the way I would answer that question is, if I need help with financial planning, I'd go see a financial advisor. If I need help with taxes, I'd go see a CPA. And if I need help with college, I would go see a college planner like me. CPAs they're really good with taxes, and they're really good with understanding how college savings plans work from a tax standpoint. And financial planners, they tend to focus on retirement planning. I was actually a former financial advisor myself. What makes me different, or other college planners different, is that we focus specifically on college. So, a podiatrist is a foot doctor, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't rely on a podiatrist to take a look at what's going on in my ear. I'd probably see a ear, nose, and throat specialist for that. We're just specialists, and when you have a specialist that's working with you, especially working with you with something as important as college, it can make a really big difference.
So, Danny, what does your services entail? So if I come to you with my high school junior, sophomore, senior, what services am I going to get from a college planner?
Well, I think this goes back to what I said earlier, Grid, is that there's a lot of different college planners out there. So to answer your question, I just want to set this up a little bit.
Sure.
There's basically two types of college planners, type A and type B. So let's talk about type A. Type A, they're going to talk to your student. They're going to help them figure out different career options, different majors, and even help that student look at colleges and even help them fill out forms, maybe point them in the right direction in terms of looking at outside scholarships. Okay. The problem is with that approach, if we find a college and it's absolutely amazing, And let's say, for example, we figure out that Pepperdine's the right school. We see Pepperdine's $60,000 a year. When you throw that price tag at the average family, they're not going to go to Pepperdine. Why? Well, because it's $60,000 a year. So college planner type A comes into that scenario, and they're helpful. But when you identify a college but you can't afford it, they really haven't done anything for that family. College planner type B, these self-proclaimed college planners don't even talk to the student. They're really focused on the family's finances, and they're basically financial advisors that are going in, helping the family plan some sort of a budget on how to save for college and how to plan for college, with very little regard as to how their financial strategies are impacting their students' financial aid. But when it gets down to finding the right school, career search, a lot of these financial advisors are simply unequipped to help with that side of the college planning problem. What makes me different, and I'm sure there's other planners that are out there like me, is that we look at college planning from both sides. Not only do we help students pick the right colleges, we help parents pay for them. And we don't do it through savvy investing or picking the right stocks or mutual funds. We help families and students pay for college by going after discounts from the colleges. Now, to be very specific, we're not an outside scholarship search. We're not a loaning agency. But what we do is we have a unique understanding of how colleges work, and we know how to guide families to go after institutional aid dollars. And in our opinion, that's one of the best ways to discount college, is to go after colleges that have a tendency to pay discounts. And I use the word discount loosely. The typical family may refer to this as a scholarship or as a grant. But what makes us different is we help students pick the right college, and we show families how to actually afford it.
So, Dan, when you say institutional aid, are you talking about mostly private schools, or are there some public schools as well that have those same opportunities?
Well, a lot of your private schools, so there's always exceptions, okay?
Sure.
I think collectively, the University System of Texas collectively has, I think, $10 billion in endowment money.
Wow.
I think a lot of it might come from football.
Right.
But what we're talking about is just institutional aid. And, yeah, it tends to come from the private colleges. So here in Atlanta, Georgia, Emory University, I think their endowment alone is about, I don't know, I think it's $5 or $6 billion. So that's a lot of money, and that's where we like to go. A lot of people may have a tendency to look towards government aid. I know here in the state of Georgia, the Hope Scholarship's a really big deal. But when you look at the type of discounting that you get from a Hope Scholarship versus the type of discounting that you would get at an institution with an endowment, whether here in Georgia, if that's Mercer University, Berry College, if it's Emory, we're probably going to find better discounts on the private side of those colleges that we're looking at.
Now, with those colleges with an endowment fund, first question is, do they have that same amount every year? Or they have that amount total to spend? Like, for example, you gave Emory, do they have to spend $1 billion within a year, or they just have $1 billion that they can spread out?
Well, when colleges have endowments, they look at it the same way a person in retirement would look at what they've collected in their retirement accounts. They're not necessarily looking to spend all of that money. They're basically looking to use that money to operate in perpetuity. So they're basically living off the interest. Okay? So can they generate returns through savvy investing? Okay. Can they use that to maybe build a better engineering department that in the long run will generate more net tuition revenue for the college? Yeah, they're not really. Do they have a set budget each year on how much they want to spend to fill all the seats of that upcoming freshman class? Sure they do, but they're not looking to spend their entire endowment. They're looking to make a budgeted purchase, and they're gonna budget that in the form of aid and grants and scholarships to the families that apply to their college.
And is there some type of formula, like who they target? Like, are they targeting minorities, students with disabilities? Is there any weight or preference to how they use the endowment fund?
Yeah, so this is pretty generalized, but in my experience, it tends to be pretty accurate. So one of the primary measures, and I think a lot of parents know this, is a student's test score, whether it's their SAT or ACT score. Colleges have a tendency to where they want to spend towards the top 25th percentile of their applicant pool. So if you're in the top 25% of the applicants that are applying and your test score puts you there, chances are you're going to see that money. Okay. Now, the amount that you see, it's interrelated based on your family's financial situation. So now it starts diving into the difference between need aid and merit aid. But when you have the research and you've worked with thousands of students and thousands of families, you can get to a point where you can almost predict down to the dollar as to what that award letter is going to look like to the family before they even apply. So yeah, there is a formula that colleges use, but there are other overriding factors other than test score. Okay, if let's say Mercer University spent significant dollars improving their engineering department, they're probably going to spend a little more for engineering majors that year to make sure they fill it with some quality students at that school. Maybe they're looking at the diversity of their class, and maybe they're looking at certain categories, certain ethnicities, so they have to allocate that aid to add to the mix of what they're looking for. But you see what colleges are looking for and what they're spending their money on, they tend to be very secretive about that. But what I can tell you is that one of the most predictable ways is through an examination of your student's test score. That tends to be the most reliable methodology at most colleges.
Then is there target test scores for kids to shoot for in order to be a part of this conversation?
Well, I would tell students that your test score is not an IQ test, okay? Your test score is basically a measurement of how fast you consume and process information. And I've seen students with a 17 on the ACT get a full ride. Really, if I would say, and I don't like to draw a line anywhere.
Sure.
But I would say that if your student has at least a 20 on the ACT, they can find themselves in the top 25th percentile of the applicants at a college that's sitting on a substantial endowment.
Now, if I'm a student, let's say I'm a junior and I just got 1,100 on my SAT, is that too low of a score, or is that good enough to get an endowment somewhere? Just to throw a number out there.
I'd be excited. An 1,100 is going to give you a lot of pretty exciting options. We've worked with students that have scored an 800. Okay, wow. So it really depends. Now, a student with an 800, are we going to be looking at colleges that you probably know about? No, they might be colleges that might be outside of Georgia. They might be smaller schools. Okay, but now a lot of people don't know this, but if your score is too high, that might pose problems in getting aid. A higher score isn't necessarily a good thing.
Wow, I didn't know that. Can you explain a little bit more why a higher score may hurt you?
So let's say I have a 36 on the ACT, which is a perfect score, okay? And a student with a 36, maybe they're a high school valedictorian, and they're thinking and they're dreaming about maybe going to MIT, okay? Or they want to go to Harvard. So the problem with applying to schools like that is it's no longer the test score that's setting you apart. Because guess what? Everyone at MIT has a perfect score. Everyone at Harvard has a 35 or a 36. So it's no longer the score that's setting you apart. Okay? Now the problem is if you apply at another school with a 36, that school knows that they're being used as a safety school. So when they send out those initial awards, they tend to dial back that award a little bit because they're not quite sure if they're being used as a safety school or if that is a school that the student is seriously considering. So if your score is very high, it just makes it a little more challenging sometimes when it comes to getting aid.
Now, one quick question about aid, Danny, since we're on this topic. We know a lot of parents have 529 plans. So if they're going after this endowment money, will, the money they're putting in a 529 plan hurt them in that, their process?
You bring up a very good point. And there's, when a college is considering a student, okay, they are looking not only at the student's accomplishments, but they're also looking at mom and dad's money. And they will never separate the two. You have to file a FAFSA. You have to file a profile form at some schools, which basically requires the family to disclose just about every financial aspect of their life to the college. And a family's finances can go a long way in the admission and in the financial aid award decision. So with that said, let's talk about 529 plans. Very, very popular plans. They get a lot of popular press. And I think that 529 plans are really sold based on the tax benefits. And they do offer amazing tax benefits. What people never seem to talk about with 529 plans is the negative impact it can have on your financial aid. Now, a lot of financial advisors and CPAs get around this by pointing out the fact that a 529 plan doesn't really affect your expected family contribution, which is basically a number assigned by the government. And what people don't understand is that your expected family contribution is a calculation that determines your eligibility for government aid. Okay? Now, when you're not going after government aid and you're going after institutional money or money from the college, the rules are a little different. There's actually an article in Reuters that I'm going to cite here. It looks like back in April of 2013, Amy Feldman at Reuters did a deep dive into this. And what she found is that when it comes to institutional aid, colleges can make their own rules on how they treat 529 plans. And what some colleges do is they can take up to 25% of the value of the plan and deduct that from your award letter. So let me tell you what I think that means, and from what I've seen from personal experience.
Sure.
If a family has $80,000 in a 529 plan, 25% of the value of that plan is $20,000. And that's how much they take away from the award letter each year. So what you're basically doing is, in a 529 plan, you're setting money aside where dollar for dollar, you're just taking away the aid that the college was going to give you. So it's not really the family or the student that's benefiting from the plan, it's the college. And you have to look at it from the college's standpoint. If they see money in a savings account, they're not really sure how much of that money is for them. But when they look at a 529 plan, there's no guessing as to who that money is for. They know that's money that's set aside specifically for college. So typically when I'm helping families with their financial strategies for college, we have a tendency to not recommend those plans because of the impact it could have on the award letter. Now, if you do your research and you dig around, you'll see that what I'm talking about is true. It's just, this is a $350 billion industry, and if 529 plans are a $350 billion industry, you can buy a lot of spokespeople and you can buy a lot of advertising. But if you do the research, you'll see that in a lot of instances, a 529 plan can actually hurt the amount of aid that you get from a college. And I'll reference that article one more time for you. This was written by Amy Feldman in Reuters, and that was written, looks like April 29th of 2013.
Wow, we'll definitely put that link in the show notes. See, Danny, that's why you're one of the best college planners around.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to shift quickly, Danny, talk about, you and your company, Game Theory, because you do something very different than, most college planners that you really, focus on social media. Usually when it comes to college planners, when kids are juniors and seniors, they just tell kids to delete their accounts, to stay away. But it seems like you guys with game theory, you guys were telling kids to really embrace social media and use it in an application process. And, why is that so important when it comes to like landing scholarship money using social media?
So I named my company Game Theory for a reason. Game theory is a branch of mathematics. It's a very advanced branch of mathematics that's designed to predict human decisions and behavior. And colleges use game theory to predict which college the family's going to pick. Okay? A college knows that if they put a certain amount on an award letter, that family's going to show up at their college. And when a college sees that they're competing with other colleges, they have a tendency to put even more money on that award letter. So we use a concept. Colleges use enrollment managers to help them decide who gets admitted, who gets paid. And we have a very unique understanding of enrollment management and how it works. And colleges are constantly trying to find an edge on of where they fall in terms of preference. Because if you're a college, and if you know for a fact that you are the number one choice for that family, you don't have to put as much money in that award letter to convince that family to show up. As a matter of fact, you could probably take away thousands away from that award letter and give it to another family, knowing that family, you're the first choice, they're going to show up almost no matter what. So what we used to do is we knew that colleges were looking at how you filed your financial aid forms. People don't know this, but on the FAFSA, you can list up to 10 colleges that you want to send your financials to. And one of the first things that colleges would do is when they got your FAFSA, they would look at it, and they would look at the other colleges that were listed. And they understood that most families almost always listed their favorite college first. So that's how colleges would know that they were the favorite. And when they knew they were the favorite, they knew they didn't have to pay you as much money to show up. Now, I know that sounds like a pretty bold claim, so I'm going to reference an article from Inside Higher Ed that actually talks about this practice. It was submitted by an individual by the name of Ree Rivard, and this was submitted on October 28th of 2013. But colleges were using the FAFSA to figure out who the favorite college was. And a couple of years ago, this practice was actually effectively banned by the Department of Education because the Department of Education knew that colleges were abusing this information. So they now block this information on the FAFSA form so that colleges can no longer see it.
Sure.
Now, colleges just aren't going to give up. These colleges, they know that they need to change how they're going to get and mine this information. So what's the next best place to look if they can't see it on the FAFSA?
Social media.
Social media, okay? So because we study enrollment management, that shift led us to start studying social media. And I confirmed my suspicions when I did my own personal survey of 35 colleges at a college fair put on by the NACAC last year. And when I surveyed 35 colleges, all 35 colleges admitted to looking at students and applicants' social media. And they're looking so that they can figure out if their efforts are working or not working. So I'll dive into this a little bit. For example, I spoke with one of the enrollment managers from Rhodes College, and he told me that they look at students' Facebook profiles and Twitter profiles every time they send out an award letter. So when they send out an award letter, and they send out a good one, they expect to see that student post about that letter. Okay? And when they look at those postings, it gives the colleges a lot of insight as to whether or not they're going to show up or not. If they say, Yahoo, I got this award, I guess I'm going to Rhodes College. Then Rhodes College, they're going to put a check mark next to that student and say, we got them.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if they're monitoring their social media and they don't see any reaction, and they're looking at their calendars and they're saying, yeah, this award letter should have hit 3 days ago, and they still haven't mentioned anything, now they're getting nervous. So one of the first things they do is they send out another award letter. But what makes this award letter different from the first one? Well, the second award letter they send out is going to have more money in it. Okay? And if they still don't see any reaction, that family is going to get a phone call from someone at the financial aid office ready to make a deal. So that's just one example of how colleges monitor social media to help manage their enrollment yield the same way they used to when they saw the other colleges on the FAFSA.
So let me ask you another question about social media. Like, is it a good strategy for kids who are going on these college visits to kind of really, be enthusiastic on social media? Like saying, hey, here's a picture of me in front of, my next school, or this is school I want to go to. Should they just kind of calm some of that activity down so they can have the possibility of increasing that scholarship offer?
I don't necessarily look at social media from that tactical of a standpoint.
Sure.
Here's how I look at social media. So time and time again, I have so many parents, and they tell me in confidence, you know what, Danny, it just isn't right. It seems like my student has been reduced to nothing more than a transcript and a test score. My student is so much more than that. And when parents tell me that, that's when I talk to them about social media, and I tell them, look, you're absolutely right. Your student is more than a test score. They are more than a transcript. And you know what? With social media, here's your chance. With social media, you can show the colleges that you're more than a test score. It's a way to showcase the things that an application can simply not relay to the admissions department. Social media can showcase authenticity. It can showcase commitment, passion. It could tell a much bigger story than a test score and that a transcript can. So if I'm a student and if I visit a college and I thought it was a positive experience and they want to tweet about it, be my guest. Go for it. Okay. What you don't want to do is I just wouldn't do anything on social media that would make it easy for that college to say, oh, we're the favorite, so maybe we don't have to work so hard.
Right.
So one of the core principles of when we're putting together a list of colleges for students is instead of applying to one or two, let's find 6 to 10 that we like. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these colleges on notice, whether it's through social media, whether it's through conversations, whether it's through a professional review and a award letter. We're going to let these colleges know that they're competing. And when colleges compete, you start to see a really big difference in the award letter. And that award letter tends to take on a much generous amount.
Dan, have you seen any of your current students that are part of game theory kind of maybe optimize their LinkedIn page or maybe their Twitter handle to kind of attract colleges, to kind of get on the radar of a college?
All the time. One of my students here in Atlanta, his LinkedIn account was actually featured in an article in the New York Times. But what I can tell you is I do have countless students that when they build a social media account, colleges will engage them. And which leads me to another point. Based on my research on colleges, one of the main takeaways was that, A, colleges are not spying on you, okay?
Right.
But if you engage a college, they will always engage you back, okay? And my students are telling me that when the college fair comes to their high school, people from the admissions department, financial aid department, when they hand over those business cards, there's usually a Twitter handle on there. And a lot of times when you follow them on Twitter, they follow you back, they'll engage you, they'll keep you in the loop of what's going on at the college. And the other thing is once you are accepted by that college, that is when your social media becomes fair game to that college. They will look at almost everything they can get their hands on from a social media perspective. So colleges aren't necessarily spying on you, but if you engage them, they'll engage you back, okay? But once you become accepted, that's when they really start digging into who you are and if that award they sent you is going to be enough to get you to show up. But yeah, a lot of students are starting to see a lot of engagement and are using social media as a direct line of communication to the college.
You know what, Dan, that's so true. I've seen several cases where kids have gotten accepted and gotten offers and gotten their offers taken back because of something silly or stupid that was posted, on a social media account. And I think you're exactly right. If you talk to college admissions officers, nobody's going to admit to going on your page or looking at your page because there's certain privacy laws that schools don't want to violate or be caught up in. But you're right. As soon as you are accepted, you are fair game to the university to go and look at everything that you posted online at that point.
Yes. And I've seen questionnaires at college fairs that say, hey, let's keep in touch. What's your Facebook profile? What's your Twitter handle? And they're just looking for other avenues of communication. And yes, there is certainly something to be said about students and telling them, hey, let's not post something that's going to hurt us, okay? But colleges aren't really looking for excuses to disqualify you. They're just trying to get to know you and see what you're all about. And yeah, if you do some of the wrong things, it could certainly hurt you. But I don't want to spend too much time on that message because I don't want to discourage students from using social media. I want to encourage them to use it, but how to use it the right way. But that's how. And again, I can't really take credit for all of this. As I was this all started several years ago when a student visited Elon University and they tweeted about their experience, and Elon University tweeted back. And that student flat out asked me, Danny, gosh, they tweeted me back. What should I do? And 3 years ago, I just didn't have an answer. I didn't know. And a lot of what I've learned and picked up along the way, I learned from one of your previous guests that you've had, Alan Katzman with Social Assurity. Actually, when I was building my own Twitter account, I came across him on Twitter, and we actually recorded a podcast together, and Alan's social media training is actually a standard component of my college planning process now. So a lot of what I'm quoting and a lot of what I've learned not only is coming from personal experience, but it's also coming from some of the research that Alan and his team have done too. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So I made sure I was giving credit to where credit was due.
Oh, definitely. Those guys at Social Security are awesome. So, Danny, one last question for you, and this is just about game theory.
Yes.
If a parent walks into your office tomorrow and they have a test score, how exact are your services where you can tell that family, hey, I know of 5 schools that would accept you today and offer you a scholarship?
Yeah, so, I'm almost reluctant to answer that question because it kind of comes across as a little braggadocious. But I've been doing this long enough to know that what I'm about to say it's accurate and it's spot on. And quite frankly, we bring a level of research that you just don't find with other college planners. Sure. So I'll elaborate on that a little bit. Again, we don't have secret handshake deals. What we have is we have access to years of painstaking research, and it's gotten to the point to where if I know what the family's financial situation looks like, and I know what the student's academics and test score looks like, I can tell you which colleges in the United States will accept that student and know what that award letter is going to look like from that college before the family even applies.
Wow.
And I know it sounds crazy, and when it was presented to me that way, it sounded crazy to me too. But I'm on year 6 now of doing this, and I know that what we offer, it works. Now, does it work this way when we're applying to Harvard? No. those types of schools operate on completely different principles. But when we're talking about the other 99% of the colleges that are out there, knowing a student's test score, knowing the family's financial situation, that tells me enough to know which colleges are going to admit that student and which ones are going to pay that student and how much they'll pay before the family even applies. And as you can imagine, that takes a lot of guesswork so that families and students can focus more on career selection and major selection. And it's hard enough being a junior and senior in high school. So we like to do take away a lot of the guesswork and do a lot of the heavy lifting so that the families don't have to.
Well, great, Danny. We really appreciate you being on the show. How can families and parents get in contact with you to kind of learn more about game theory and the services you guys offer?
They can contact me several ways. I would say the best way would be email.
Sure.
They can email me at Danny, that's DANNY, at gametheorycollege.com. That would probably be the best way they could reach me. I'm on Twitter. My handle there is at G as in golf, Theory College. And if they just do a Google search, Game Theory College Planners, they could find my website. They could find my Facebook page. But I would say email would probably be the best way to get me. If I don't get back right away, don't be mad. It's just I'm very busy, and this is a really busy time of year right now. But yeah, if anyone is interested in reaching out, I would say email would be the best way.
All right, well, we got it. Thanks, Danny, for being on the show.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Cedric.
Hey guys, I hope you really enjoyed that episode with Danny and Game Theory. And the thing about Danny is he was very kind of shy and bashful talking about his results, but he's really good. I've seen it before with my own eyes. If you tell Danny your child's ACT score, SAT score, their academic performance, he can pretty much guarantee you what school will accept your child and how much money they will give your child for free to come to their school. So please check out his site and set up some type of consultation with Danny as quickly as possible so you can get their free money. And also make sure you go to iTunes if you enjoyed this episode and rate the Digital Parent Podcast and let us know what you think. Until the next time.